So I'm gonna go over this tough one in this video, and keep in mind I have to do multiple takes because I'm doing stuff on the side. I'm working, I'm going to different hospitals, I'm dealing with people with sex offenses, 83, going through senile, and I have a cat to take care of and all. I got a lot of responsibilities on the side, so I have to do multiple takes. But this is an important example that really happened. It's 100% truthful, and it shows how things were turned around onto me when I'm trying to do the honest, good thing, and then I end up with more problems that I shouldn't have been. First, let me take responsibility for my actions in this situation. I was going through closets and looking through stuff that wasn't mine. I was going through other people's closets. That is wrong. You don't go through other people's stuff. You don't take other people's stuff that's not yours. That is wrong. There's my actions. There's my wrong actions. There's my responsibility. Now I'm going to go over a situation that really happened that should have been identified. It's psychological. There's a lot of twisting and lying going on from my mother and father, and there's a lot of projecting the blame back onto me so nobody deals with the actual issue at hand. So I'm going to go over this. So I noticed, because I was taking pain pills from a different medicine cabinet. It was codeine from a medicine cabinet, codeine bottle. And I was looking for more of that. But I noticed that my medications were going missing and I wasn't taking them. I was noticing all different types of pills that were going faster than they should have been. I wasn't taking them. And I noticed a lot of behaviors that I knew must have been wrong, but I wanted to say something about it. So what was going on so this only happened for about a month period that I was able to see medications disappearing from other people's bottles that wasn't me taking them. There was my Vicodin, there was my father's Percocet, and there was a lot of old prescriptions of like Xanax and other pill bottles that went missing. They just completely disappeared. So I looked into this. Now remember, I wasn't taking anything from these closets. I was just investigating, looking for codeine again. And the Percocet, I did take a couple, but there was at least 10 missing from somebody else who was taking my father's Percocet, that other than me. And there was my Vicodin that was going missing other than me. And there was bottles of pills of mine that were going missing as well. Because when I started doing this search, there was bottles, and then later they went missing. Now, I couldn't quite just go up to my father and mother and tell them this, because my mother would just say it's me and blame me. That was very common in my household. If my mother did something wrong, she would blame me for it. And I already knew this from the drinking, from hundreds of other examples. She would drink a bottle that went missing from the basement, then blame it on me, and then I had to cry and suffer for weeks before I got her to admit it. This was very common occurrences where she would do something wrong and then cover it up with me. I'd blame it on the child, blame it on the dog, blame it on the orphan. It was a good scapegoat so she wouldn't have to take responsibility for her actions. Now, I'm witnessing these pills go missing, not from my hand. Yes, I was going through other people's closets, and yes, I was taking things that weren't mine. But there was other stuff going on. And I stopped. I completely stopped. I only took like 3 to 4 of my father's Percocet, and the codeine in the closet was there for like 3, 4 years, and it was in my closet. So those are the type of things I was doing. I took a bottle of codeine. I took, I don't know, 3 or 4 of my father's Percocets in the bathroom, but yet there was 10 missing. There was more and more missing from that bottle. Now I discovered what was going on. My mother must have found out that I took one of them, and then she decided to take them herself, and if she ever got caught, she would just blame it on me. Now, my father never found out about the bottle in the bathroom. Luckily, because that would have been blamed on me and scarred me, because I would have told the truth. I would have said, yes, I took some, but my mother or somebody else was taking some too. And it wasn't my father. My father would never touch those pills. He's a good person. So I started an investigation. I started looking for my mother going in the closet and taking my pills. And I caught her. She was taking my pills, caught her red-handed with the hand in the cookie jar. So now she can't lie her way out of this. She has it right in her hand. She's taking them out of my bottle. She's taking my Vicodin out of my bottle, as well as many other prescriptions going missing. And she looks high as a kite or drunk, and she's having mood swings, and she's blaming things on me that I'm not doing. So now I have a hard choice to make. Do I tell my father that I saw my mother taking my medication this time? I finally caught her after this going on for years, after getting blamed for stuff I wasn't doing, after having medications go missing, after my mother manipulates doctors to get more and more prescriptions put into my body, after there's prescriptions all over the place that she's holding on to. I mean, there was at least 40 pill bottles in her closet. There was a total of like 14 up above in a higher area. There was pills and medications with all different names on it all over the house. And I found this out because I investigated. So I had to make a hard choice. Do I take the risk that my mother blames me for this again? And I decided, nope, just go with honesty. If they want to talk about you going in the closet, you admit that you went in the closet. But we should really talk about what's going on with my mother. So I bring this up to my father. I tell him, I just caught Mom taking my pills out of the closet red-handed. Now, what is done about this situation? Does my father have a conversation about it? Does he try to talk about me and on what I know about it? Not at all. I get screamed at, and they tell me it's all my fault. I shouldn't be going through the closet. Now, they are right. I shouldn't be going through the closet. They're right about that. But are they taking any responsibility? No. Are they admitting? No. My mother says, yes, I took Zach's meds, but I can do whatever I want. And you shouldn't be going through my closet. This is your fault, blah, blah, blah. You're punished, you're punished, you're punished. None. And then my father, instead of handling my mother and saying, hey, you shouldn't be taking other people's medications, you shouldn't be handling Zach's meds in those way, as well as asking me, is there any other meds that you think that she's taking? No. He doesn't try to take any responsibility for the situation. Instead, he jumps on the blame Zach. But you shouldn't be going through the closet. You're in trouble. And I should be in trouble for going through the closet. But why was I going through the closet? What was I seeing in that closet? What was I identifying? What did I see? I saw my mother take pills out of my pill bottle and take them. This wasn't the first time. I witnessed this over and over and over. But I had to catch her. For my father to believe me, I had to catch her red-handed. And I did. I caught her red-handed taking Vicodin out of my bottle. And that wasn't the first meds that went missing out of that closet. I shouldn't have been going in that closet. But why? What is the responsibility on their side? My side is I shouldn't be going through people's closets. Okay. I take full responsibility. But what was happening in there is wrong as well. And nobody took responsibility for that. You do not take other people's medicines. You do not get more drugs and hold on to them and take them. You do not take drugs with other people's names on them. You do not doctor shop and try to get doctors to drug your child so you have more pills. You do not give your child extra medicine like Epicac. You do not tell your child to give other children medication. You do not give your child caffeine pills or allow him to take caffeine pills because he wants to be better at basketball and he's dealing with a neurological disorder. These are responsibilities of my mother and father to deal with. My mother is going through something. She's taking pills that aren't prescribed to her. She's taking pills of mine. She's taking pills of my father's. And I had to set a trap. Now, when I finally come up and say, yeah, I went through the closet, but these pills are going missing and my mother's, Pat, my mom is the one taking them. We should talk about this. Does he? Does he have a conversation about these drugs and alcohol that my mother is taking and then blaming on me? No. He jumps on the blame Zach boat. He goes, no, it's all your fault for going in the closet. You're in trouble for going in the closet. And she totally just changes the conversation. Now, that's a common, what they call a deflection. It's a deflection of responsibility. Somebody tells you you shouldn't be taking pills with other people's names on it. And instead of dealing with your responsibility, my mother's responsibility to explain why she's taking my pills, why there's even more pills missing, and why am I going through the closet in the first place, instead of having those conversations, she just goes and deflects. She goes, he shouldn't be going through the closet. It's his fault. Blame him. It's his fault. Blame him. And it works. She deflects the responsibility, and my father's denial makes him buy into it. He totally forgets about the pills going missing. He totally forgets that she was caught red-handed with Vicodin that wasn't prescribed to her. He totally forgets about the Ipecac. He totally forgets about the handful of drugs I was being given, and then the fact that I keep on bringing this up to the doctors, that I'm having problems with my body, that I couldn't see, I couldn't move, that I lost all my senses. And when I talk about this, he totally forgets about it because he's being deflected. He's being lied to and manipulated. My mother purposely deflected and manipulated him into just looking at me. Okay, I take responsibility. I went through your closet. But how about all this other stuff going on? How about the pills going missing, not from me? How about the alcohol going missing downstairs that she tried to blame on me and then came forthwith after I cried myself to sleep for weeks, getting blamed for something I didn't do? Plus, I'm on medication that makes me feel suicidal or depressed when she does this to me. She blames me for her own alcohol drinking. I get punished and yelled at. I get manipulated, and then I go back to a program to feel depressed and suicidal because these medications are doing damage to my body, and I cry myself to sleep every night for weeks. And then eventually, after she sees how much this is hurting me, she admits to it. And then when I go, ha ha, you admit it, then she goes, I don't have to admit anything. I am an adult and I don't have to admit to any responsibilities. If I want to blame you for this, I can blame you for this. That is what she ended with. That shows her mental state. That shows that she thinks that she can blame other people for her actions. That was very clear. She said this right in front of my father and a DMH worker. This clearly shows her mental state at that time. And then she was also taking pills out of the closet that were prescribed to me and my father. And then when I try to bring this up to my father, and I admit I was going through the closet. That wasn't my closet. I admit that. But there was lots of stuff going on that I was trying to bring to his attention. And instead of handling the issue that day, he jumped on board on the deflection blame Zach ship. Okay? We're only going to think about Zach going through the closet. We're not going to think about my wife is taking my son's pills. We're not going to think about why my son is going in the closet and bringing this to me. We're not going to think about my wife's behaviors and how she admitted that she took alcohol and blamed it on Zach before. We're not going to think about these things. We're going to jump on the blame Zach ship. And yes, I do have to take responsibility. I went through a closet, but I did not take those pills. She was taking my Vicodin. She was taking my pills, more than just those. There was other bottles that went missing and went low first. There was a bottle of, what do you call that, Xanax, there was like 10 or 20 missing, and then the bottle just disappeared completely. Now, about 4 years prior to that, I took a couple of them and got taken out of that. I put about 10 of them in my sock. So I did the same action and got caught for it. But my mother is doing these same behaviors and I'm learning from it. It's a problem. My mother got caught red-handed taking my medication. I literally had to set her up so that it could be proven. I had to record her. I used to have to try to get recorders so I could record what she was saying and what she was doing for the DMH workers. I used to have to bluff her sometimes. She would lie through her teeth about something that was obviously not true. She would blame me for something she did herself. And then I would have to bluff her and tell her that I have a recording proving that it wasn't true. And then she would get all mad and say that it's my fault for recording. Another deflection. Don't talk about the fact you're lying. Talk about how I shouldn't be recording you, huh? Because that's what would happen whenever I caught her with a recording. If I recorded her and I caught her red-handed lying, and I said, hey, you want me to play the recording? Because I know you're lying right now and I got proof in my hand. Instead of listening to the proof in my hand, They would say, no, you got to delete that. No, you have to delete that. You're not allowed to record me. You're not allowed to record me. Delete that right now. No, we don't want to hear it. Delete it, delete it, delete it, is what I was told. Why? Because if I played it, then they would know she was lying. And there were some recordings that were real where I did that, and there were other times where I bluffed her. And every single time, she used to deflect, change the conversation on how I'm bad for recording her, and that I should delete it without letting anybody listen to it. I should delete it right away before anybody hears that she's lying. And that's a deflection. And instead of my father going, well, maybe I want to hear that recording. Maybe Zach's telling the truth. Maybe something's going on here bigger than myself. No, he would just go, Zach, you really should delete that if your mother says delete it. Or something like that. Well, this is a big problem. I'm having to try to get recordings of myself and my mother because she's making up stories about me. We're not even talking about that. We're talking about how I recorded you and you want me to delete it because it's wrong that I recorded you? Okay, yeah, I can see that. It's wrong that I recorded you. But you don't think making up stories, lying, taking your son's drugs, giving your son drugs, giving him extra pharmaceuticals, causing a permanent disability, trying to exaggerate and lie to Social Security so you can get money. None of that's a problem though, right? Me recording you, that's the big problem. Me recording your lies, that's the problem. Or the problem is I'm going in your closet. Yeah, these are my reasons. I shouldn't have been doing these things, but why was I doing them? Because something was going on. If you go in the closet and you see meds going missing and it's not you, that only leaves two people, your father and your mother. Well, I knew it was my mother because I caught her red-handed and I brought it up to my father. But instead of handling the situation once again, he just blamed me and said, you shouldn't be going in the closet, you're punished. Without having any conversations about why my mother is taking medications out of my pill bottles and swallowing them. Without talking about anything about the missing pill bottles that are disappearing. Not talking about the 40 prescriptions prescribed to all different people. Not talking about any of that, right? Not talking about how she's drinking downstairs and then taking a pill upstairs. I witnessed her multiple times go in the closet, take a pill in her hand, take it, and then go downstairs and drink. I witnessed this several times. And these are big problems, and I try to bring them to my father. But instead of handling his situation, instead of taking responsibility and handling his wife's issues, he allowed her to project it onto me. And I am suffering greatly because of that. No child should have to try to record their mother because they're making up stories and lying. And if they do get caught making up stories and lying, and if the child does record them, you should be asking, why are you recording your mother? Oh, and I go, because she's lying and making up stories and blaming me for stuff she did. Oh, well, maybe you want to listen to that to see if it's true, and then delete it. And then I'll never have to record you again because then you know what's going on. But instead, I was told to delete it with nobody listening to it. That's a big problem. I am trying to get the truth out there. Video and audio do not lie. When you record somebody on audio, everything they say is right there. They cannot then later say, I didn't say that, I didn't do that. It is right there on video, it's right there on audio. And that's why she used to get so violent and so mad when she found out I recorded her. Because she knew what she was doing was wrong. She knew she was lying. I could see that right from her reactions. I see it all the time. If somebody like an officer of the law starts beating somebody for no reason on the side of the road, and then he finds out you're across the street with a camera recording him, he's going to try to come right after that camera and destroy it. Nobody wants the truth getting out there when they do something bad. And my mother was no different. When I recorded her lying and manipulating, or when I caught her red-handed taking my pills out of the closet, she did not want anybody knowing that. So she would deflect, she would put the blame on me, totally try to get my father totally not to think about anything about what's going on. Same thing with the recordings. You know, the fact that she drank a bottle downstairs and then blamed it on me for weeks, and it took her that long to admit it, and then after she admitted it in front of a DMH worker, and I said, ha ha, I knew it. Then she goes, on a whole rant on how she doesn't have to take responsibility for her actions. She can blame me all she wants for her own actions. I have the right to blame you. I can blame whoever I want. I'm an adult. I don't have to do any of this. If I wanted to leave the blame on you, I could have. That was exactly what she said. That's a mental illness. No, nobody can blame other people for their own mistakes. If you drink a bottle of alcohol, that's your fault. When I drank alcohol while homeless, I don't blame it on my mother because she abused me. No, I made a choice. But when my mother drank a bottle in the basement, she said it was me who drank it. That is a problem. That's somebody who has not learned to take responsibility for their actions. And yes, I have some health issues and some problems, stemming from my addiction. But this neurological disorder and the way I was treated definitely contributed to all my illnesses. And it needs to be handled. I cannot get proper medical treatment because we don't know the past. I know the past. God knows the past. I knew my mother. God knows my mother. My father even saw a lot of this. But who else knows? The people that are helping me only know my mother's stories. Made up stories that had purpose and narratives behind it. These are big problems. And my father needs to come out of his fantasy world and start talking with me about these problems. He was there. He remembers my mother. I guarantee you, taking those, or maybe he doesn't want to remember. He might not admit it. It's much easier to say you forgot something and put the blame on somebody else. But if he was honest and he was really paying attention, he would remember that she took pills out of my pill bottle and swallowed it. And instead of having a conversation with her about it, you guys just yelled at me and told me not to go in the closet instead of figuring out what was going on. He also would remember that there was a whole time where I got blamed for her alcohol drinking. He also would remember that I brought up a lot of stuff that happened in Westford to the doctor. An Ipecac punishment where I was given extra drugs. There was a whole time where I was given a handful of pills and I was overdosed. There was another time where I was passed out from my own adoption. They brought me in a car. Then they brought me to this wooden bench and I passed out. It looked like a judge and jury type situation. It was a small room, not a big courtroom, a smaller courtroom. There was some wooden benches and there was a up front area. And I was passed out. As soon as I got in there, I passed out. She almost had to carry me out of there because of all the pharmaceuticals in my body. And these are big problems, and I will remember these for life. They are no damn fantasy. Passing out after getting a handful of pills is not a fantasy. Being given a whole bottle of Ipecac and having her admit it, and then having her admit it in front of other family members is not a fantasy. Ending up taking a handful of pills and then losing the ability to walk, losing the ability to feel, losing the ability to see, losing the ability to talk, having your breathing slow down, then going unconscious, and then waking up with permanent disabilities, that is not a fantasy as well. These all happened. Now, what it means, what drugs were being given to me, I don't know. I only know I took a handful of pills. I don't know what those pills were. The fact that there was no ambulance called and I wasn't brought to the emergency room, that's a fact. But why was I not brought to the emergency room? Why? I don't know. But what I do know is my mom used to be a nurse. She knew better. She knew when a reaction like that happens, you bring them to the emergency room. She even had somebody on the phone that told her the goddamn same thing. Bring them to the emergency room. And she refused. She said, they don't know what they're talking about, and hung up on them. Well, that says a lot right there. What does that mean? If somebody refuses to bring a dying child to the emergency room, if they refuse to listen to medical professionals' advice to bring them to the emergency room, if the individual just gave this child a handful of pills, well, that leads to something pretty scary, does it not? Those are the facts. Now, from 25 years of looking into this, and all the proof that's out there and all the evidence, supporting evidence that she did, all the things she did and all the things she said, have shown me that she did something wrong and she didn't want anybody to find out. That's why I wasn't brought to the emergency room. That's why she didn't bring me after a medical professional told her to. But these actions are messed up and they need to be handled. And if my father decides he does not want to handle it, that's his choice. But he is losing his soul, and I will continue to suffer for his and my mother's sins. I can take care of my problems, my addiction. the little bit of mental health I have, like anxiety, PTSD, and ADHD, even though two of those wouldn't exist if I never met my mother. If I didn't met my mother, I wouldn't have had anxiety and I wouldn't have had PTSD. These things are serious. And my mother only wanted me to talk about the PTSD that happened to me in New Mexico. See, then she had somebody else to blame. Then she got to blame a place up in New Mexico instead of herself. I would talk to her about my PTSD. I would talk to her about what she did to me and how it bothered me. And she would totally just blame, no, it must be your biological mother. No, it must be this. No, I'm telling you, the fact that you gave me extra Ipecac bothers me a lot. I have flashbacks and memories of you doing it. And it's the extra that bothers me, not the Ipecac, it's the extra. I have clear-cut memories of you drugging me. That's my problem. You gave me lots of pills, and then my body was hurt by it. Oh, no, it must be your biological mother. No, 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 it has nothing to do with me. Yes, it does. That's denial again. I have completely told them what my problem with my mother was. I brought it up over and over at the doctors. I brought it up in front of family members. I brought it up in front of DMH workers. She even caught herself in a couple of traps. When she drank a bottle downstairs, it took her weeks to admit it. And then after she finally admitted it, she made this statement. I don't have to take responsibility for anything. I could have left the blame on you. I don't have to do anything. I could have left the blame on you. Well, that shows her mindset. I was only like 13 years old, 14 years old, and she's now drinking a bottle of alcohol. Now, don't get me wrong. I was drinking and doing my own thing after that. I mean, after that night, I didn't give a fuck. If I'm going to get blamed for other people's drinking, if I'm going to get blamed for somebody else drinking alcohol, then it doesn't matter what I do, does it? But that's the wrong type of thinking. That is. I still have to move forward and be the best person I can, even if somebody else is trying to make up stories about me. But anyways, that shows her mindset. That she drank a bottle. She then blamed it on her child and let her child suffer for it. She had her child on drugs, so he was getting depressed and suicidal, and because she's making up stories about him, it's making it even worse. And then after weeks of crying and weeks of suffering, then she finally comes clean about it. And then after she comes clean, she retracts it, and she tells everybody exactly how she really feels. She feels that she can blame anything she wants on me, her child. And she said that straight out in front of DMH. She said these words, I don't have to take responsibility for anything. I could have just left the blame on you. I don't have to admit to anything. I could have just left it on you. That's how she truly feels, though. She said that out of anger. That is truly how she feels. Because she was doing this a lot. She would make bad actions and then blame it on me. Now, there was my own actions, but after years of this, it affected my behavior. In the start in Westford, there was lots of shit going on. By the time I was 13, I was screwed up. But she was still blaming me for her actions. And that's not right. You cannot do that. And this affected her in such a way that her liver failed. Her drinking and her drug abuse made her liver fail. And my father doesn't even want to admit that. He doesn't want to admit that her alcohol and pill taking might have affected her liver. Oh, no, 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 no. He doesn't want to admit that. He'll try to blame every single thing on my drug addiction. He'll try to make everything sound like it's my fault. But saying that your wife had a drinking problem and it affected her liver, that's too much of a jump. No, that's because he's in denial and he has a problem with dealing with this. He had a problem with dealing with his wife. Even when he was in the car next to her, it took him a long time. She was able to verbally abuse me for a long time before he had enough. And most of the time he didn't do that. Most of the time he would just leave the room. He would leave her to verbally abuse me, twist my mind, physically abuse me, put drugs down my body, have me drugged by other people, lie to doctors and have them give me prescriptions I didn't need, give me prescriptions I'm not prescribed, give me extra medications that I shouldn't be taking. All these things happened, if he likes it or not. And when we all pass on, 50 years from now, we are all going to be handling this. And based on what you do today, depends on what happens tomorrow. You have to understand the past to know what to do in the future. And if he doesn't handle this now, this may be his only chance to be on the right side of this. If he wants to burn for an eternity because he allowed a child to get crippled and had that child's life shortened by 40 years because he didn't want to deal with his wife, that's a choice you're making. You're making a deadly choice. Your choices have consequences, just like my choices have consequences. Everybody, including my father, has consequences for the choice they make. If you choose to let your wife cripple a child, then there's consequences for that, and your child's the one who will pay for it. But there are consequences after life, too. You can pay for them in this life or for your eternal life. Remember, this is a short time. We only have a short time on this earth. But your soul is for eternity. For eternity. So I would suggest that people take responsibility for their actions and pay attention in life. Because I was seriously hurt. And that means that other people could be seriously getting hurt too. That's why I'm coming forward with this. This is hard to talk about. I'm sure that nobody wants to talk about this stuff because it's really traumatic. But by me coming open and being truthful about this stuff, it allows other people to learn. Yeah, I made mistakes, but what were my mother's mistakes? What were my father's mistakes that contributed to me? At age 5, 7, 9, what was going on? What was happening to my body at that time? Those are what we need to discuss, because that is what happened in the past that has led to this point today. And that is the stuff that was never handled. My addiction, my mental health, all that has been handled. All of that I've sought help for many, many years. I've done what I needed to do. I've made reparations. I've done everything that I need to do when it comes to my body, my choices. But now I'm cleaning up somebody else's choices, somebody else's mistakes. And I'm doing it single-handedly. The person that's partly responsible for this stuff is out there on a beach drinking, totally running away from the situation. Meanwhile, I'm handling what happened to me head on, losing thousands of dollars, spending my own money, working extra hard, and even sacrificing my body. There were times where I'm outside having seizures, trying to just fix what my mother did to me. Just trying to fix my medical records. That's it. Just trying to fix Social Security, make sure they have the honest truth about me. Try to make sure my doctors have the honest truth about me, so that way I can get proper medical care. But while I'm doing these things, and I'm injuring my body waiting at the bus stop in winter or whatever, somebody else is completely ignoring it. They don't even want to give me a ride to the hospital to fix this. They hope I die on the side of the road fixing this. They do. Because then they don't think that there'll be any consequences for them. My father would rather see me die on the side of the road than say one bad thing about his passed away wife. Or even talk about her when she was alive. It has nothing to do with her being passed away. Remember, I didn't talk about this for years so we would have time to mourn. I made sure to give him the respect that I give to everybody. I gave him time to mourn while I worked on my addiction problems. But this was always going to have to be circled back to. I spoke about it when I was 18. I spoke about it when I was 17. I spoke about it when I was 16. I spoke about it when I was 15, all the way back to 5 or 7. I spoke about it. But after she passed away, I gave him a break, but it always had to be circled back. But I had some of my own issues to handle, and I handled them. Now I need a car. I need my neurological disorder fixed. I need to make money so I can move on. These are what I'm working on. And to get the neurological disorder fixed, I'm going to need to clean up my Social Security records, and I'm going to need to clean up my medical records. And seeing as none of this was ever out there, nobody ever wanted to discuss this, nobody ever wanted to handle my mother, I'm handling this by myself. But there is somebody out there that should be taking some responsibility and trying to make this right. But if they choose not to, then they are going to lose their eternal soul. You cannot expect to kill somebody, cripple them, allow your wife to harm them in these ways, and expect there to be no consequences in your afterlife. You can't expect that. Don't think that asking forgiveness while you know what you're doing. No. You can't ask for forgiveness and then rob a bank and then ask for forgiveness again. No, you just can't do that. If you're doing something on accident, you have a process that you can go through to ask for forgiveness. But you don't want forgiveness, because if you did, you'd be talking to me right now. So he doesn't want forgiveness, no. He'll say that. He'll say, oh, well, the Lord will probably just forgive me. I'll just go up and ask for forgiveness and I'll be granted it. No, you've done no work to actually show you want forgiveness. You've not taken responsibility for any of the actions that have happened to me. And you've also blamed me for other people's actions. And I'm still getting hurt today. I still have injuries from what she did to me today. This winter, I will get hurt because of what your wife did to me. So, yeah, you can't think that that's not going to matter to God. For the rest of my life, I'm going to be getting hurt. It's already been 25 years. But for the rest of whatever time I got left, I will continue getting hurt because of what your wife did to me. You're a good person. I know my father's a good person. But he also goes into denial, and he doesn't want to handle his wives. He's fine with handling his children, but he's totally in denial when it comes to his wives. He will overlook everything, even if other people have to get hurt in the process. And that's a big problem.